Here's what I will say. What a weekend. So, look, I will just encourage everyone listening right now, if you want to climb in, as they say, I encourage you to do it now, because I'm telling you, I know this is going to be one of those days where the phone lines get jammed really early. So if you want to comment on any part of it, please do it, 215-592-9494. John, let's start draft, then we'll get to the Sixers. We're going to play a ton of audio through the show. We have all sorts of audio from all those press conferences over the weekend, all those calls the Eagles did where they informed the draft prospect that he had been drafted by the Eagles or about to be drafted by the Eagles. So load it with audio. A lot of good stuff. Plus, Ray Didinger will join us later, Shokopati as well. But your chance at 215-592-9494. John, why don't you take first crack at it? I'm going to ask you a really simple question. Was this draft as good as people say?
Yes.
I mean, like Mel Kiper gave him an A.
Yeah.
Was it that good?
Yes, I'd give it an A, too. It looks really promising. Jalix Hunt is a project, of course, and I hope we have the patience to treat him that way if necessary. Shipley, I think Shipley is a stretch, and I don't think it's likely he'll ever contribute as much as a more explosive player would have in that spot, but he's got awesome intangibles. And the new kickoff rule, it feels like we are taking a long, hard look at that. We've added so many players who could be incorporated in schemes and be like crazy pinballs out there, pinballs that yield points and, powerful pinballs. I'm excited about that. We talked about trading up and taking Cooper DeJean on Friday at the Borgata. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
We talked about trading up. Well, you didn't like the idea at the time. I mean, it was like strange. We mentioned it. I thought it was so highly improbable.
Right.
We didn't really go into it at all.
But
the fact of the matter is, you ended up getting two at the position probably of greatest need in a lot of people's minds.
I think so, yeah.
Cornerback.
That's right.
You get two who, depending where you look, are ranked in the top three. They are probably, for my money, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, depending on, day and their play. This is an unbelievable haul at a position of need, followed by some really intriguing young guys with these traits that burst off the tape. When you actually feel like you're looking at a young Harold Carmichael out there catching passes, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting. When you're looking at a slot receiver in Aeneas Smith, who is more powerful, more like a Deebo Samuel type receiver. Like, that's exciting for the future when you just imagine what these guys can look like in our colors out there. The draft was just outstanding, and it feels like Howie continues to just apply previous experience to the current draft and make himself a better GM in the process.
Look, I think he's a great GM. Obviously, we want to hear from you at 215-592-9494. Your basic reaction to the draft, any part of it or all of it that stood out to you, whatever you want, go for it. Again, phone line's there for you.
I want to say the last thing, the Quinion Mitchell thing, we didn't talk about it enough on Friday, that it is miraculous that Howie was able to stand pat and still get his guy. I was totally frivolous about throwing away a pick. Hey, go trade up and get your guy in the first round, because that's what Howie does. Howie actually got better at doing that part, and I would have been fine with him being worse at it. Howie got better at the part where he just sat and waited. He was patient, and he said, okay, Quinion Mitchell, he's our guy anyway.
You know what helped him a lot?
I didn't have to trade away a second-round pick or a third-round pick,
well, that's
whatever
right.
it would have been.
But I will say this. I think what helped him a lot, I mean, not only just a ton of quarterbacks got drafted and a ton of tackles got drafted, but he had so many options at cornerback at that point. I mean, for all we know, he might have been happy with 3 or 4 different cornerbacks.
He had the entire run of the draft at the cornerback position, which is so incredible.
Right. I mean, we don't really know
the pick of the entire draft.
Well, we know he got to pick whichever one he thought was best because he picked the first one. So,
exactly.
I mean, it doesn't get any more basic. But he might have liked 2, 3, and 4 almost as much.
And we know that they liked Cooper DeJean nearly as much. He was right there in their plans in the first round.
Well, that's
at
what
22.
they say, at least.
Yeah, you never quite know. Let me say this. So, again, all the draft reaction, 215-592-9494. Here's where I'm at on it. I love the focus on defense. You guys know I was very clear from the end of the regular season or end of the postseason, like, come on, defense, let's go. I mean, not that it took a rocket scientist to figure it out, but I liked that they didn't Mickey Mouse there. Like, they went in. Defensive back obviously was a major need, so I'm thrilled that they attacked it there. I'm going to be fascinated either in the lead up to training camp or training camp, 3 players that have been here. Bradbury, Maddox, Blankenship. Who starts? Who sits? Who's cut? Who's traded? Bradbury, Maddox, Blankenship, 3 guys that were starters last year, and frankly, really most of the last 2 years. All 3 of those guys, their tenure could be in serious
uneasiness
jeopardy.
in that group of guys. I mean, I can't imagine that there's ever been a draft where you've got a cluster of players in a meeting room, in a position room, who are anywhere close to as uneasy as those guys are. This was the worst draft possible
for those 3. Yeah,
for those guys who are sort of on the tightrope,
and complicated, of course, by the fact that DeJean can play corner or safety, so we don't know which position group he's going to most affect.
Corner, he can play inside corner, he can play outside corner.
Yeah. All right, so the whole Eagles thing on the table, including the trades for future years. Trott Jr., I mean, it's an amazing story. We'll detail that as we move through the show. All of it. 215-592-9494. All right. Now let's, Seltzer, what would you say here? Flip it? Like we're going to flip it from good to, what would the word be? Unsayable.
Horrendous. Embarrassing.
All right.
Infuriating. I got lots of words.
All right. And we could probably put an adjective before then, but then we get fired.
Yeah, I didn't want to get, I said words I was allowed to say.
Okay. So, look. It's one of the most disappointing Sixers losses in a long time, and that's saying something. The path is there for the Sixers to get to the Eastern Conference Finals if they can just get past this round. And they're, it's funny, John. I jotted some notes down earlier, and I wrote the bottom line is, and then I said to myself, well hold on. There's not one bottom line. There's like 5 or 6 bottom lines. Here's where I'm at on the Sixers. Embiid is not capable of sustained greatness. He's just not. He's currently incapable of sustained greatness, and that is probably going to be the primary thing that sinks their ship. I mean, the reality is 3 of the 4 games, he has not been able to effectively answer the bell in the fourth quarter, and it's a shame on many levels because you see in the first quarter how remarkable he was yesterday, and by the end of the game, he totally ran out of gas. Now, I do blame Nick Nurse. I understand why he did it, but it was the wrong call. Coach has got to be called to task on the carpet for it. I mean, Coach took a risk. All right, I'm going to play the big guy the whole second half. It did not work. Not only did it not work, I mean, it backfired in spectacular fashion. I mean, he was dead by the end of the game. So that was a major problem. Maxey, obviously not all the way there yet. Heck of a player. Love him, the whole deal. Not able to, I said, Embiid can't sustain greatness. Maxey can't sustain true effectiveness at the level he needs to lift this team with or without Joel. So really good player, but not giving you enough. Look, the Knicks obviously are out hustling the Sixers. That's clear. I want to be clear about this, though. I don't make that as a sweeping statement to indict all Sixers players. I think there's a ton of Sixers players playing their guts out. I really do. In many ways, I'm more proud of the effort from the Sixers than I think a lot of people are. But Tobias Harris is killing them. I mean, I believe Lowry's trying his hardest. I believe Oubre's trying his hardest. I believe Embiid's trying his hardest. But I look at a guy like Tobias Harris, and maybe it's just not in there. Maybe he does not have the DNA to ratchet it up. I mean, I don't know. It's like I've almost never seen anybody in Philadelphia sports so incapable of ratcheting up intensity, or if he does for 5 minutes, sustaining it for the next 35 minutes. And it's just like every 50-50 ball, every 50-50 rebound, every time the ball's on his fingertips and it's near going out of bounds, he just can't quite corral it. I mean, he's killing them. If Tobias Harris gave them what he should be giving them, they would be either tied or leading this series, even with all of Embiid's issues. So the guy I'm frankly most unhappy with is Tobias. But obviously, look, I got Nick Nurse in my sights. I got the Embiid thing. It's complicated. Okay, John, go for it. What do you got? And the bench freaking stinks. The bench is a disaster. But I
expected Eastern Conference Finals for this team, maybe playing for it all against the best of the West. But how far away does the Eastern Conference Finals feel right now? It's like a pipe dream.
Well, how about John? Let me just say this.
Joel had 2 months to heal up and get better, and it's like that didn't even happen at all. He is as decrepit as he's ever been. Go ahead.
So what I was going to say is just to speak to how far away they are. And look, I'll say I don't think the series is over and they could still win it.
Exactly.
I don't think
feel that way too, but what does that matter?
Right. I don't think they likely
where are they going
will.
after that?
Well, so here's the weird thing. It's not weird. It's what it is. When this whole thing is all said and done, they're going to probably have won either 1 or 2 playoff games, depending on whether you count the Miami Heat game as a playoff game. Like, you got to win.
And it took 50 from Embiid to win that one.
You're right. Yeah, like you got to win 16 of these things, or 17 if you have to win that extra game. Like
and
they
we
had to.
saw what matters
they're
most
gonna win 1 or 2.
The attitude that you bring to the court, and we don't have it. The Knicks, the way they rebound, the Knicks, the way they hustle, the Knicks, the way they fight. We saw what's required. Game 1, the Knicks had 23 offensive boards, 26 second chance points. This last game, Game 4, the Knicks had 15 offensive boards and 21 second chance points. Yeah. You know, like that's crazy time. That's standing around if you're the Sixers. That's hustle. That's refusing to refusing to give in to the hurt and the pain of the end of the game.
So I don't
the Knicks are tougher than we are, and that's why they're winning this series right now.
Well, that is
we can turn the tables.
Yeah.
Joel needs to lead the way on that front, but that means forget about the brace, forget your hurt.
He's not
He
capable.
can't do that. We've
can't.
seen it proven time and time again. Every time he steps a certain way, it's the end of the world. You can't win that way.
Well,
you can't win with that distraction. It's just wrong. It's wrong that he's trying to do this the way he's trying to do it because it's not going to work.
So I disagree with 2 different things you said there. I'm not down on Joel's theatrics, if you want to call it that, whatever. Like, I think he's just legitimately not healthy. I, in many ways, admire the way he's trying. He just can't. He's a car that just runs out of gas, and he's still got 50 miles to go, and it's called the fourth quarter. He just can't do it. And the thing
that's so amazing though is this year it was very different. I mean, there was 2 months of just slow preparation.
It didn't work.
Like just roll it up like easily as you want.
Didn't work.
And deliver you to the playoffs. I can't believe it didn't work.
The other thing I'll say, again, the idea of the Sixers being out hustled, and they are. But I will also say this on the rebounding front. Like I think it's a little bit more complicated than just the Knicks are out hustling them. Just for what it's worth, the Sixers guards are about as tiny as you're going to see in the NBA. I mean, when you play Maxey and Lowry as much as they do, you are guard deficient on rebounding.
Josh Hart, you know how big Josh Hart is?
But he's got
6'4".
But he's got leaping ability that is probably 8 inches above
and you know what else
guys.
he has? Just desire.
I know he does.
And
Joel
toughness.
Embiid's 10 inches taller than him,
I know
man.
he is.
Like, he had
and he's winning.
Josh Hart had 17 rebounds this last game. Embiid has 18 the last 2 combined.
Look, he's
the biggest guy on the freaking court.
He's dead by the fourth quarter.
Have freaking 15, 16 rebounds every single one of these games. It's crazy. He had 8 last game. 10.
You ready for this? He can't do it.
He should be able to just on size alone.
He had. I will say this: in all the years I've watched basketball, he may have had less in the fourth quarter in his tank than any player I've ever seen. He had nothing. He had nothing in the fourth quarter. Look, we'll take your calls on it. I mean, I know it's really frustrating. We'll get to the fan element of it with the Knicks fans, the Sixers fans, what Embiid said. That, all of it. 215-592-9494. Your phone calls on a crazy weekend. The good and the bad. Joe DeCamera and John Ritchie on WIP.